Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the World Wanderers podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda, and we're your hosts. Today we're going to be talking about our time in Gibraltar and Morocco, as well as the difference between doing stuff on your own versus with a tour.
Yeah. So to get started, we stayed in a town called Algeciras.
Is that the pronunciation?
That might not be. Algeciras.
Yeah, so that's at the sort of southern tip of Spain.
Yeah. So Gibraltar is the very southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula, but it's not Spain because it's an English colony.
Yeah, and so we kind of debated for a little while about what was our best bet. There's another town called Tarifa that we had heard was nice. You can go kiteboarding there, I think.
Yeah, it's kiteboarding and windsurfing are the very popular activities in Tarifa.
As well as scuba diving, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Algeciras is another option with a little bit less to do, but it was a little bit easier to get to Gibraltar from there.
Yeah, there's a big ferry terminal there to go to Morocco, and it's right across the bay from Gibraltar, so it's easier access to Gibraltar because you can just take a bus over to this town on the Spanish side and walk across. We ended up, when we went to Morocco, we took a ferry from Tarifa and not Algeciras, but beforehand we thought that the ferries left from Algeciras because the ferry port's bigger.
Yeah, so I don't know what I would recommend staying. Like, what would you recommend?
If I went back, I'd like to stay in Gibraltar, I think.
Yeah, having been to Gibraltar now, I really liked it. I would probably stay in there. At the time, we thought it would be easier to just have sort of a main point and then be able to sort of go to the different places that we wanted to go from this central spot. Mm-hmm. Having been to Algeciras, there isn't really much there. I mean, it's just a small
it's not a very
Spanish
nice place.
City.
Oh, it's not that Spanish either. It's like there's such a strong like Moroccan influence there.
It's like Spanish Moroccan.
Yeah, but the one thing, they have a lot of good kebab.
Yeah, that's one thing. Going through our journals, Ryan and I were constantly, it seems like all I wrote about was like, oh, and then we ate kebab and went to bed.
A solid twice a day diet.
Yeah, definitely. It's good though. Like, it fills you up. It's very reasonably priced.
Yeah, that's the reason we ate a lot of it, because you can go out and get it at a cheap price. And in Spain, the grocery store situation wasn't great, so we weren't able to cook for ourselves very much.
When we say the grocery store situation wasn't great, we mean that it was basically convenience stores with all sorts of different foods in them. Mm-hmm. So some like deli meat, some pickles, occasionally cereal. Definitely nothing that we were used to from home that we were looking for to make dinner and lunch. I remember constantly in Spain being like, where do these people get their food to like cook meals? Like, there's no fruits and vegetables really in.
Well, I think the fruits and vegetables is more of the market.
Yeah, definitely. We just didn't see that sort of stuff. So.
Well, we went to a market in Algeciras while we were there.
Yeah, you're right. We did. That was the first time though. We'd been in Spain for like 2 weeks by then. Yeah.
So our first full day in the neighborhood, we immediately exited Algeciras and went to Algeciras. I feel like I'm really butchering that pronunciation. And we went over, took a bus to La Línea de Concepción.
Yeah, so you get off of the bus and then you walk across the airstrip, like the
border.
Yeah, the border. So there's like an airstrip, and then you kind of just walk in and you're in Gibraltar, and it's this whole different world.
Yeah, and if anyone doesn't know what Gibraltar is, it's a gigantic rock. It's kind of a mountain that comes out of nowhere. And it's really cool because I think it used to be a bit of like a sandbar connecting it to the mainland, and then that's where they built the airport. So there's a giant airfield, and the only road in or out crosses the airfield. And then when you walk across the border, you have to walk across the runway too.
Yeah, like the bus won't take you across, so you have to walk.
Yeah, we'll post.
We'll just like look for a plane. Hopefully we don't get hit.
Yeah, but it's very interesting and spectacular sight.
So cool.
And for how cool it is, and I had known about it beforehand, I was kind of excited to go there because I have a thing for political anomalies like that. But it wasn't somewhere where we met a lot of people who had gone.
No, I think it's expensive to stay there. I mean, it was pretty easy to get to, but we did have to stay in Algeciras to get there.
Mm-hmm. We didn't have to.
No, we chose to. A lot of people, I think, just kind of stick on sort of the main backpacker trail and hit the places like Granada, Sevilla.
So yeah, I guess if you're doing it, you'd go Barcelona, Valencia,
Granada
or Ibiza, Valencia, Granada, Sevilla, and just not get down into that part of Spain. But I'd really recommend people go down and check it out.
Yeah, no, it was definitely really cool. The rock is absolutely spectacular. The first view of it was just so cool.
Yeah. So we crossed the runway. We're into Gibraltar, and it's kind of like vaguely like being back in England. You see red phone booths, the English mailboxes, and a lot more brands and kind of nicer, higher end shops, nicer, more modern supermarkets.
Yeah, and everything's in English, which was kind of a breath of fresh air for us. And we did go in a supermarket. It said that it was a Safeway, so we were super excited, and it turned out to be a Morrison's, which was fine because that's just another brand of supermarket. But we must have spent like half an hour in there.
Yeah, we had been probably a month without seeing a modern supermarket, and that's one of the things for us when we go traveling somewhere where there isn't a lot of kind of the modern supermarket. We get excited to go back into one and see all the food options.
Right, and I straight up have a thing for foreign supermarkets. Foreign, but like home.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting to just look at what products they sell. Like what's the same, what's different, what's unique. Mm-hmm. I just love them.
And the supermarket is a pretty amazing place when you kind of actually see what's going on there. Like I remember coming home from South America and seeing going into the produce section at a supermarket back here, and there's just so much produce everywhere, and there's like hardly any people there. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like, where does all this food go?
Yeah, do people actually eat all of it?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. So we took the gondola up to the top of the rock, and then we hiked around on our own. So one of the first things for me was seeing the macaques, the monkeys.
Yeah, the Barbary macaques. I believe they're apes.
Oh, okay. The apes. So they warn you not to have like bags out or food out because they will steal them. It's true. We saw a lady get a sandwich stolen out of her hand. So I was a little bit fearful of them. Like I wanted photos with them, but I was a little bit fearful.
Yeah, that was kind of the first time I'd ever interacted with primates, I think, other than humans.
Yeah.
So it's funny. You learn that the ones on the top, they're the fattest and they're like the alpha animals because the ones at the top get the most attention from tourists and the most food. And then like the lower you go down the mountain, the less fat they are, the lower they are in the social class.
Like they're more docile.
Yeah. It's funny walking around. I remember at one point we came on to some stairs and there was a macaque blocking our way, and we were both fairly nervous to like go. And
I remember I was like, "Hello, little macaque. I promise I'm not going to hurt you. Please don't bite me."
Yeah, because I think they have fairly intimidating teeth.
They're fairly intimidating in general, I think.
Yeah, it was funny.
I was pretty scared of them.
At one point, we were sitting to eat by some caves, and a lady had a bag out with her lunch in it, and a monkey or an ape came down and swooped and took the bag and ran away.
Yeah, that was a fairly common thing. They don't lie about that. So when we went to eat, we found like a very desolate area on the backside of the rock. We checked all around for monkeys or for apes. We sat down for probably like 5 minutes and waited to see if we heard any noises before we took our food out.
Yeah.
And even then, I think we ate really fast and just put it away.
Yeah, and they say it's the plastic bag sound that they really clue onto and come after when they hear that grocery bag crinkling around.
It's so funny. So what else did we see while we were on the rock?
So the thing, they give you a map of it and it looks very straightforward, but the hill's so steep, the map doesn't really help very much. So we got to the top and we're like, oh, we'll just walk over here to this, because there's quite a few different spots of interest on it. Gibraltar has a long history of wars and being under control of different people, because it's such a strategic point. From Gibraltar you can see Africa, so it controls access to the Mediterranean. So there's lots of like different military stuff set up. Beyond that, there's some really cool natural caves there. And it's a geological phenomenon of some sort, because like, where did that thing come from? I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like a rock was just drifting through the ocean and collided with the bottom of Spain. It was like, cool. I guess I'm stopping here.
So there's lots of things to do on the rock while you're walking around. So we set off trying to find some stuff, and we're walking on the thin roads, and you can pay a taxi to drive up, and so there's taxis ripping up and down the roads. It's kind of scary. Walking on the roads isn't that fun, and we kind of got lost and had to hike back up to the top, and then eventually found our way to St. Michael's Cave, which is a big, I don't know, I think it's the biggest. It could be. There's a whole bunch of different caves on the rock, but this is a very big one where they've used it as a hospital during the war, and they use it to put on orchestra shows in the cave.
Yeah. So
and one of the coolest things about it for me was that when the Greeks talked about Gibraltar as a pillar of Hercules, as something like Hercules made it. I don't know. And then so St. Michael's Cave was what they believed to be the entrance to Hades.
Yeah, it was very cool to learn all about that and just the different uses that this cave has had throughout the different years.
And it's gigantic. You spend a lot of time roaming around in there, and I don't even think you get to go as deep as is possible.
Yeah, it's very, very big. It's like the rock is hollow.
Yeah, almost.
We also went up to the Mediterranean steps, which kind of go down the back side of the rock. That's where we lunch, and there's not as many apes over there. Not
as many people either.
Yeah, not as many people, which we liked. And because it's steps, there's obviously no cars. You get such a cool view just looking at it. You can see the tip of Africa.
And like you can look back at the rest of Gibraltar. That was one of the most spectacular things I had seen up to that point. Just walking down those steps, we saw 2 people in the 2 hours we were doing that part of the walk. It's just beautiful. Yeah,
I really liked that. Anything else that we did there? I think that was pretty much it.
So yeah, we walked down the steps and around. I remember saying afterwards that it would have been good, instead of taking the cable car up, to walk up the Mediterranean steps on the backside and then come down, because there's more direct steps on the front side. When you go down the Mediterranean steps, you kind of have to walk all the way around to get back to town. It's quite a long walk.
Yeah. We treated ourselves to a beer and a cider after though, so.
Yeah, we go into an English pub. And it's funny because we saw English pubs in Gibraltar and they have menu del dias, but the menu del dia had fish and chips and the John Smith.
Yeah, and they accept the pound, but they have their own type of pound there.
Yeah, so they have a Gibraltar pound, which is actually pretty cool. It's got I think a skull and a crossbones on it. I think, or maybe just a skull. But we went in, and you can pay with any of your UK pounds, but I don't think you can use Gib pounds in the UK.
Gib pounds?
Yeah, that's what we call them.
Who's we?
Me.
You and I.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a Spanish influence in Gibraltar, but there's still a lot of just lobster-looking English people.
Lobster-looking English people.
Who have moved for the heat.
Yeah. It is pretty great though. If you're traveling through Spain, definitely add Gibraltar to your list. I would highly recommend it. It was a highlight of the trip for sure. Especially if you've been in Spain for a while, and it's you can just leave and you're kind of in a different, well, you're not kind of, you're in essentially a different country, but it's kind of weird. It's a bit Twilight Zone because it's still kind of Spanish, but British at the same time, hot. But it's they drive on the right-hand side of the road, but everything else is very Britishy. It's oh, that seems so weird. It's just a very strange place.
Yeah, it really goes to show the difference between like, so what's separating Gibraltar from Spain is just like some guys with guns on the line, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
the military, and it's like the people and everything can be so different just because of those people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that we just live in a world where that's how things are.
yeah, and right now they're going through a bit of a dispute. I think Spain uses Gibraltar as kind of like a distraction tactic because Gibraltar was taken away from Spain in the 1700s. Spain should still believes it's theirs. So the Spanish government kind of like to rile people up and we need Gibraltar back. And they've kind of slowed down the border enough that there's like gigantic waits if you want to get into Spain from Gibraltar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that puts a lot of pressure on the people living there because there's a lot of stuff you would like to do. Like if you have a car in Gibraltar, there's nowhere you can go but Spain.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. I didn't actually know that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, the next stop that we did from Algeciras was that we went down to Tangier in Morocco.
Yeah, it's a crazy place because you can be in Spain and then go to like sort of this vaguely England Spanish place and then go to Morocco. Like, so from
we had
one day to the next, it was one day to the next, like crazy differential.
It's kind of like Spain, England, Africa, Spain.
Yeah, it's a very cool place to go. So we booked onto a tour to go to Tangier and we exchanged some euros for Moroccan dollars, which would later turn out to be a mistake.
Yeah. So we booked a tour through our hostel or the hotel like place that online.
No, we went down to a tour agency. We got hassled by people. There's a lot of, it's kind of an aggressive place. So you go down by the ferry and there was people like trying to hustle you into their tourist agencies.
Yeah. So we eventually found one, booked onto that. And so we took a bus from Algeciras to Tarifa, which was absolute insanity. Mm-hmm. There wasn't enough seats for all the people and all the people were yelling in Spanish and we didn't understand what they were saying and we left late and then I was stressed we were going to miss the ferry.
We left very late.
It was like half an hour late.
It was just madness too, because I think there must have been like large groups of like Moroccan families and stuff. And maybe they didn't speak Spanish very well because like the driver was yelling at people in Spanish. It was nuts. And then we take the bus to Tarifa.
Catch the ferry on time.
Yeah, we go through exit immigration for the EU, I guess it was, and then get on the ferry. And I guess you have to go through Moroccan passport control on the ferry. And so the entire ferry trip, we're just standing in this gigantic line waiting to get our passports stamped.
They didn't even stamp our passports either. They just stamped our tickets.
Yeah.
And we went to this security, like one of those metal detectors, and it wasn't even on. I was like, what is happening here? So we spent the entire ferry ride, which I was really looking forward to after having seen that area from Gibraltar. I was really looking forward to like seeing it from the ferry. We spent the entire time on the ferry in this line. And then we get to Morocco and we had to go through another border control.
And that was the first time we had been to, I guess I call it a poorly functioning country. Although you could call Spain a poorly functioning country. But like you go to Morocco and it's just chaos. All of the like government stuff that kind of functions like mediocrely well in other countries is just not at all working. So we get with our tour group and we're like, okay, this is going to be a little bit less hectic now. Not the case.
Yeah, I was so relieved to be on the tour. And then it's just equally as crazy. It's just somebody is taking us around. Mm-hmm. So we started by driving through Tangier, seeing some of the suburbs. They
took us through like the richer area to show us that. And then...
Yeah, which was nice. And then we stopped to have the option to ride camels, which I did.
Yeah, I kind of felt a little bit uncomfortable about it because they take you through the richer neighborhood, which is a bit strange because all these gigantic houses just have like massive walls and wire fences. Like you can really tell that like the rich people are super afraid of everyone else. And then you pull off the side of the road and there's like 2 camels there with a guy.
A couple guys. I paid like €1.50 to ride this camel around for like 2 minutes or whatever. He like took me around. It was like a pony riding. I don't know. I know that you didn't really agree with it, but I was pretty stoked on riding a camel. I would recommend, if you're going to ride a camel in Morocco, to probably do like some sort of, sustainable camel riding experience.
Not like the downtown Tangier camel ride.
Maybe not. It was €1.50 though, and I rode a camel, so that's awesome.
I suppose. So we continued on down into Old Town, and that's when things got pretty hectic. Old Town...
Shit got cray.
Old Town Tangier it's cool, but it's very tight streets, definitely built before cars were any option anywhere. So the tour, since there's a lot of poverty in Morocco, everyone's trying to sell you shit. It's like they're begging, essentially, but trying to sell you goods so they don't have to pretend like they're begging.
It's so obscene too. They'll like follow you through the streets. One guy tried to sell me a bracelet and he started 500. I was like, no. Like 100, no. 50, no. 25, no. 10, no. $1, no. Like, I'm not buying this bracelet.
Yeah, but they'll follow you around for probably like 5-10 minutes isn't unusual. And there's a ton of them. And since we're on a tour, I think they know the route. So you go into a shop with the tour because they stop for lunch. They stopped at like a Moroccan rug place. They stopped at a tea house. And then every time you come out and start walking again, it's just, you're under attack with people trying to sell you stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely very overwhelming. But the meal that we had was delicious. We had bread and soup and kebab.
Shish kebab.
Shish kebab. I wrote kebab in my journal. I was clearly just had kebab on mine. Shish kebab, chicken, couscous.
Mm-hmm.
Like a dessert, a pastry dessert, as well as Moroccan mint tea.
Yeah, the mint tea was good. And you actually bought some.
I did buy some with my Moroccan dollars.
And then you proceeded to haul it around for the next 5 months?
Yeah, so I bought some loose leaf tea and then realized that I really didn't have any way to make that. I didn't bring it home. I threw it out before we went to Asia.
Oh, really?
Or maybe Australia. I threw it out before we went to Australia. Because I didn't want to come in and get searched because I had like this loose leaf tea. Yeah, I had no way of making it. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would probably buy it again if we were just in Morocco.
Yeah, so one mistake we made, I think the tour might have been a mistake, but we exchanged for Moroccan money in Algeciras in Spain and got a less than favorable exchange rate. Then went over to Tangier, found out you could pay for everything in euros.
And that they really didn't want the Moroccan dollars.
Well, because the Moroccan money, as you find in a lot of poorer countries, most countries almost, it's like they want US dollars or euros or somewhere where the government's not inflating the currency like crazy. So they want euros, don't want your Moroccan money. And then at the end, we had to kind of just get rid of it at a really low price. Yeah,
I wrote that I lost 15 euros out of it.
Yeah, so we were only there for a day, so it wasn't an extremely large loss, but
I mean, it's like $25 close to.
Yeah,
it's not ideal, but it was definitely a learning experience. I mean, I felt stupid for not doing my research, and I don't think that you should beat yourself up over stuff like that, but definitely do, if you're going to a country like that, do your research.
Mm-hmm.
Just like look it up. Like with Google nowadays and free Wi-Fi traveling, it's so easy to look those things up.
Yeah, and so in general, before that, I'll say that was kind of the first place we'd been outside of Europe, right? We had a bit of experience with Krona in Iceland, and then we were just working with euros and pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So going to Morocco was like, oh, do we need the money beforehand or not? if you're going to a country in general, the market, especially if it's like a second world, third world country, there's usually a market for US dollars or euros to begin with. So if you're fine bringing those things in, because they're more desperate for euros and US dollars there, and there's a lot of Moroccan dollars there. And then in the country you are beforehand, there's probably not many Moroccan dollars on sale. There's no market for euros or US dollars. So in general, it's better to just bring in US dollars or euros and just maybe a tiny bit of the currency you need. If you think that you need it for maybe a taxi from the airport, but usually you can get a decent currency exchange rate at the airport.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Don't do what we did. That was really silly.
Yeah. And even what did you think about the tour as a whole?
I've kind of gone back and forth about my thoughts. One thing I really don't like about tours is being forced into doing things. So going to this like rug store, and it's obvious that this is the rug store that this tour goes to every single time. And he puts on the same spiel, and then he wants you to buy stuff. Same with the spice market or tea market or the place that we went to with the teas and the spices. You know, it's a nice experience getting to try those things, but it doesn't feel very authentic.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, going somewhere that's very, very overwhelming, like Tangier, and especially, you know, we hadn't been anywhere like that before. It was nice to have a guide and to have somebody to show us where to eat and to tell us what to get and to help us out with that. But then at the same time, there's other stuff that I think I would have preferred to do in Tangier than what we did. What do you think?
Yeah. So it's hard to look back on now, because now that we've gone through places like Cambodia and Vietnam and Bolivia and some crazier kind of countries, I think you'd be a lot more comfortable in that situation. But we were pretty uncomfortable. We'd only been backpacking for like a month at that point.
Yeah.
Only in Europe. So you go to Morocco and it's like, whoa, this is crazy. So it was nice having that comfort level of someone who kind of knows what's going on, taking you around. But looking back on it, yeah, it wasn't a very authentic experience. A lot of the time was spent just like fending off people trying to get our money through shitty goods. And then we didn't really get an enjoyable experience. Like we got to say we went to Morocco and like kind of a look at things, but not very in depth.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you, if we were going to do that again, what would you do?
I would try to go on my own. And from what I've heard from people going to Morocco, that getting out of Tangier is like the thing you want to do. Yeah.
So I think that if we were going to go back, I think I'd dedicate 3-4 days, if not a week, to, you know, you're paying to get that ferry over. Get out of Tangier. I'd like to go to like Marrakesh. I would love to do a camel trekking expedition for like 2 days. I think that would be really neat. I think just going for one day, you just don't really get the opportunity to have a sense for a place.
No, not at all.
I think at the very least we should have, you know, stored our bags in Algeciras and brought a day pack and stayed over for the night. And you know, maybe we do a tour one day and then the next day kind of explore on our own.
Yeah. And if you're spending time backpacking in Spain, maybe like if you could go over for a week, yeah, but if you can't, maybe just leave Morocco.
Yeah. One thing that we've learned through our travels is we both like to see a lot of stuff and different stuff. And so.
What do you mean by that?
I'm just thinking about with Patagonia in Argentina. Like it's almost like greedy travel. It's like I'm so close, I have to go. But it's like, no, why don't we just, you know, embrace the time that we have here? You know, there's going to be other opportunities to see this stuff. And I think maybe it's more so me than you. It's like I just get this urge to see it all. So it's like, oh, we're so close to Africa. Like we have to go over. It's like I feel like this overwhelming sense in my body that I'm like wasting this opportunity if I don't go. When really, you know, there's probably other places in Spain that we could have spent time in and then could do Africa on a whole different trip, or,
Yeah. I do think even if you have, like, if you had a couple week vacation and like you started like Barcelona, Valencia, go down to like Gibraltar, and you can do Gibraltar and then a few days. I think even if we had like 4 days, 3 nights in Morocco, you could get a better experience.
I think even one night we would have had a better experience, like 1 night, 2 days.
I don't know about one night.
Yeah, I don't like just one night, but it's better than just one day. I just feel like we didn't really get much authenticity out of it.
Yeah, but that said, on the ferry ride back, I was quite happy to be going back to Spain.
Yeah, for sure. So the ferry ride back was equally as chaotic getting back into Spain.
Yeah, we showed up quite late into the terminal on our tour. We were all kind of worried that the ferry might have left already, but I guess ferries don't really run on exact time in Morocco or in Spain. So you go, there's a long security lineup, and the ferry's already supposed to have left. So people are just like walking around, not going through it. You go through the metal detector, which, as Amanda said, is broken. So there's no real point to the entire security lineup.
Yeah, it's silly.
It was a shit show.
Yeah. So what are sort of your thoughts on, like, we had this experience where we did Gibraltar very much on our own and kind of were like, oh, maybe a tour would have been nice. And then we went over to Tangier and did this tour and we're like, oh, maybe this would have been nice on our own. Mm-hmm. What do you sort of think about doing things on your own versus doing things on a tour?
I think that I tend to have better experiences when I do things on my own, because since you're going through the effort of figuring stuff out, it seems to be that I'm more present and more able to enjoy the things. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're on a tour, you're not really that present because someone's showing you around, worrying about getting you place to place. You're just supposed to poke your head out and look at something every once in a while.
Yeah. So I have sort of the same thoughts. I have a few like pros and cons, I guess. So pro to a tour is that, if you get overwhelmed or stressed easily, it's definitely a better way to enjoy what you're seeing because you don't have to think of the logistics. Mm-hmm. At the same time, a pro to doing it on your own is I get so much personal reward out of doing something on my own. Like, especially if it's challenging, it's like, oh, like we conquered this day on our own and that felt awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I'm way more present when I do it on my own. So a con for me about doing a tour is that I'm just very much going through the motions. I don't have to think about where did I turn? Where are we eating? What restaurant is this? What am I seeing? It's very much like, oh, pull out my camera, click a photo, walk a little bit, listen to this. It's very robotic.
Mm-hmm. And I find the people you're with sometimes add to it, but a lot of times take away. Sometimes add to the experience of the day, but a lot of times take away from the place because you're talking to them, or you get out of the bus and it's like there's like a fight to look at things and take photos of things.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing too is money. Tours are oftentimes way more expensive than if you do it on your own. Like if you take a public bus and then do walking and bring your own food, I mean, you pay so much less.
You can end up spending more money on your own, though.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, a group can add to the experience as well. It's definitely dependent on the situation. I think that it's important for people to figure out what's best for them, like really try to get to know yourself as a traveler and what's best for you.
The one thing I'd say on the pro side of taking a tour is if you're going to somewhere that kind of makes you uncomfortable, like let's say you're going to Vietnam and you've never really been anywhere that isn't very organized and structured. Signing up for a tour for the first little bit, even a few day tour, it does help you ease your way into being comfortable there.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
You don't have to do, like, if you look for example, we're going to Southeast Asia for like 4 months and you did like a 3-week Kentucky at the start or like a stray thing, then you can you don't have to deal with logistics at first. You can kind of just get comfortable doing the day to day in this country that's a little bit crazy. And then, okay, 3 weeks go by. It's very much in your comfort zone. And then you can kind of add those other logistical things like going to the train station, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, for sure. Especially too, if you're a solo traveler.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you're a solo traveler.
Like as a solo traveler, I don't know that I would have done Gibraltar on my own. I think that I probably would have looked into a tour for something like that. Maybe.
And then Morocco for sure. As a solo female.
100% as a solo female, I would not go over there by myself. I wouldn't do that now.
Why not?
Why not?
Mm.
I think I would do what you said about Southeast Asia. So find a tour that lasted, say I'm going to Africa for 4 months by myself. My first little bit, I would find some sort of organized group or tour or something just to help myself get sort of acclimatized, get over that jet lag and coming straight from Canada and just get used to the culture and the country. And then I would go on my own.
Yeah.
So had I been in Spain by myself, going over to Morocco, I would have done a tour. I don't regret that we did a tour. I think it's just so interesting, the difference between an experience on your own and an experience with a tour.
Yeah, because people kind of forget how much they make a difference in the things they're seeing. So if you go look at the same thing in 4 different situations, it's going to be different every time because it's you perceiving the stuff you're seeing. So if you're with a group of people that you feel uncomfortable with, maybe you don't enjoy looking at these things as much, maybe you don't enjoy your food as much.
Yeah.
So do you have anything else to add before we wrap things up?
No, I love that point that you just made. That's about it for me.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll have show notes and some photos of us in Gibraltar and Morocco posted on our website, theworldwanderers.com. And if you have an opinion on taking a tour or doing things on your own, maybe leave a comment under the episode 10 show notes.
Yeah, or get in touch with us on the blog.
Yeah, absolutely. So until next time.
Ciao.